quality of life. Looking at that word change, you really described it well when you said there can be positive change and there can be negative change. Now,
Yeah.
You said that you've heard things on the doorstep. People, what kind of things are people looking for on the doorstep actually?
Quality of life.
Right,
Quality of life.
right.
Services that they can access.
Mm-hmm.
Public services I'm talking about here, because I mean, there's such a, we've seen in COVID where there was suddenly a one-tier health system.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the potential of how that could work. But in reality, we will slip back into the two-tier very quickly, and we probably are now.
So thinking about that then, since we didn't get the change, maybe I shouldn't say we, the voters didn't get the change that they had hoped for. I'm wondering, what do you think of somebody, you have a lot of experience in the world, you analyze these things from a social science perspective. Do you fear that maybe at the next election, given that people didn't get the change that they wanted, and given that so many voters would be so frustrated, that there might be a switch to something like a Brexit or Trump-style politics in Ireland?
Well, that's always the concern, that it will take itself really, really way down to the other side direction. But the biggest concern is that people won't vote at all.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of people, and they won't exercise that wonderful right to vote, that wonderful opportunity to exercise that, because as I've heard so often over the last few months, even, what was my vote for? It's a really important question. I went out, I voted for change, but I didn't get that change. I didn't get the real change. And so it's about the quality of life side. So I would say that we have to have huge conversations at community level, because change really happens at community level too, where people pull together, and this is what we're looking for, where we begin to unpack policies and what it means. And I suppose as a social policy analyst, that's something I've been around for a long time. They say, well, what exactly does this mean? And we need to be having those conversations with young people quite a lot, because a lot of young people they're coming to vote, but then there's a pullback again, because there's a sense of disillusionment at the moment. And
absolutely,
I suppose looking at some of the surveys that have been done on average of people, what do you think of this government? Well, actually, no, I really want a new election, So, so that's a big response, that carries weight. But the other side of it is there's a government in, and they have put forward a programme for government, one which I will continue to challenge. I will continue to hold them to account for, and to. And I think that's what I would say to people as well. We have to start holding people who make such statements on paper to account in action.
Now, one thing I want to ask you about then is that during the campaign, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, they both said that they wouldn't go into coalition with each other. So there was a breach of a promise there. So when you look at someone, it doesn't have to be necessarily a particular political person, but just any human being who makes a public promise and then breaches it for some sort of gain. Do you think there was political games played there, that they breached their promise for political gain? Or do you think that maybe egos got in the way, that people wanted ministerial positions? Or do you think I'm too cynical, that maybe they had the best interests of the country at heart?
You're being cynical, but you'd be forgiven for cynicism. Okay. Okay. Can I say that to you?
I think a lot of young people feel that way, that there's a lot of gamesmanship going on.
Yeah, and again, you look at the balance of power, and where people come together and they say, well, if there's another group that we don't want to include, well, then the balance of power that we've got to come together to connect, And then you begin to unpack policies and look at the two old parties. You begin to realize they're actually very similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people have questioned, why aren't you merging? Because they have become very, very similar in policy and policy formation. And one taking it up from the other and being able to move it forward very easily, because there isn't a huge change in policy that has to take place. So So that's an interesting one. And policy is really important. And when I talk to people, and when I've been out there talking the highways and byways over the years, I've been saying to people, policy affects your life. And people say, what has policy to do with me? And see, it has everything to do with you.
So
because it dictates your life and what you have and what you don't have.
Let's get into the policy then.